Hi guys, I am making this video to share my understanding about 8 and 6 mark question for IGCSE economics paper whose code is 0455, and I am talking about second paper. In the second paper guys, you can see that there are questions which are starting with the command term discuss. The expectation of this command term is that you write in depth about the issue or a topic in the question in depth and in a structured manner. It is aiming at testing you for the objective of evaluation, whether the evaluative skill, critical thinking skills are inculcated in you while pursuing the IGCSE economics curriculum or not. So your evaluative and critical thinking skills will be assessed through these questions of 6 marks and 8. Guys, if you have seen the specimen paper released by Cambridge, you must have seen in paper 2 there is section A and section B. In section A, if you notice, since the change in the paper pattern, the last two questions are having a command term discuss and they are of 6 marks each. Also, you must have observed that in section B, the D part of each question is of 8 marks, is also starting with the command term discuss. It means that the overall weightage of having this type of question or having evaluative skills and critical thinking skill is equal to 28 marks out of 100 marks. As I have explained here, that in section A there are two 6 mark questions, which makes it a total of 12. And in section B there are three 8-mark questions. Actually, there are 4 questions out of which any 3 you are supposed to answer. And in each question, the D part is of 8 marks, starting with the command term discuss. So it makes it a total of 3 times 8, 24. And in section A, 2 times 6 is 12. So 12 plus 24 makes it a total of 36 out of 90. That means 40% of your paper 2 is covering this assessment objective of evaluation. It itself shows the importance of this part of the paper. And because the total weightage out of 100 is for this paper 2 is 70%, that means these 36 marks will be equal to 28 marks out of your score of total 100. So it tells us about the significance of understanding this and the purpose behind making this presentation for you. Guys, for 8-mark question, I'm addressing first 8-mark question, how to go about answering 8-mark question. You may see that the types of question fall under the categories which I have identified here in various slides. I have divided them into 4 categories. First category I am sharing here is effectiveness of policy measure or a method or a decision in achieving desired goal, result or objective. Means the question may be talking about some method which government may have adopted or firms may have adopted, or a policy which government may have formulated and implemented, or maybe a decision has been taken by any resource owner or a decision making authority, be it a private sector or a public sector, means a government or a firm, towards achieving a certain goal or maybe achieving certain outcome or a result, or to achieve some objective. Examples you can see out here of such type of questions. Discuss whether or not demand side policy measures can promote economic growth. Discuss whether or not increase in wages will reduce a firm's profit. Discuss whether or not the imposition of import tariffs by a country will reduce its employment. So these type of cases where government is thinking of imposing tariff on imports with the aim of reducing unemployment. in earlier question, government was a firm was thinking of increasing wages and wanting to know whether it will reduce firm's profit or not. Then there was another first question which I read from this presentation, whether the demand side policy measures can help in promoting economic growth or not. So these are the one category of questions which you may find. All the questions will be appearing to be similar, like starting with the command term discuss, but little tweak and twist in the word will help has resulted me in classifying them into certain categories. In the next slide, if you see that there is another sorry, there is another type of a question, evaluation or a testing of claims. There are some claims which are made, and the student's job is to test whether that claim will be true or not. Validating the claim, again, that means you have to critically think about whether the claim made is right, and if why, or if you want to challenge the claim, what are the arguments. Some examples are here. Let's see the first one. Discuss whether or not skilled workers are always paid more than unskilled workers. Do you agree that skilled workers are always paid? Give arguments in favor of your agreement. Or you may disagree. You may find situations, you may find reasons that where skilled workers may not be paid more than unskilled workers. That is what expected by the examiner from you to write. Then let's see another second last question. Discuss whether the large firm will earn more profit per unit sold than a small firm. You have to write arguments both in favor and against. Yes, large firm may earn more profit than small firm. No, large firm may not earn more profit. But why you are saying so? You have to support it with the reasoned arguments. Then there is a third category of question, all appearing to be same in prima facie. They all look like same because they are starting with the command term discuss and the expectations are same. But I classified them into the third category, probability of future event. Like discuss whether or not demand for coffee is likely to rise in future. So write your arguments which may support that yes, the demand of coffee may rise in future, and then counter it with some other arguments where demand of coffee may not rise in future. You cannot choose that, okay, no, I think it will rise only or I think it will fall only. You have to answer both. That's what the evaluative and critical thinking skills means. Using your economics theories and concepts, your knowledge and understanding, you have to identify what may cause a rise in the demand of coffee in future and what may not cause. What are the factors which may restrain the demand of for coffee in future? Then let's see, the third question is discuss whether a decrease in government spending will reduce inflation. Okay, whether you may say that yes, decrease in government spending will reduce inflation, and you may say no, decrease in government spending will not reduce inflation. And unfortunately, you do not have a choice to pick any one. You have to write both the sides, and that's why it makes it a argumentative question where you have to argue both for and against. Then we move to the fourth category of questions in which I classify it, these 8 marks question, pros and cons. In fact, whether it's a 8 mark question or a 6 mark question, the classification of these question and the appearance of these question is exactly the same. Only the marks allocated are different and their placement. 6 marks are in section A and 8 marks are in section B. Otherwise, uh, assessment objectives are same, expectations are same. The length of the response may vary, of course, because it's a 6 marks and a 8 mark question. In 8 marks question, obviously you need to write a little more, and in 6 marks relatively less. But otherwise, they both are having a same expectation of your skills, knowledge, and understanding to demonstrate. Now, the fourth category in which I classified is pros and cons. advantages, disadvantages, merits, demerits, or merits and limitations, weaknesses and strengths also we can call. So some examples are: discuss whether or not increasing sales of product will beneficial to the firm. Yes, it may be beneficial. No, it may not be beneficial. Is what expected from you. Support both the sides of the argument with your knowledge of economics theories and concepts. Discuss whether the advantages of market economy are greater than its disadvantage. Yes, there are more advantages. No, but there are certain areas where disadvantages look severe. So you have to ultimately identify both the advantages and disadvantages of market economic system. So these are the types of question which you may encounter for a 6 and 8 marks question, actually both. Uh, Now, once we learn how to answer 8-mark question, only for a 6-mark question, we have to reduce our length. So that's why you may see 8-mark question. Do not think that, okay, for 6 marks, there will be another explanation of a different nature. As I mentioned earlier, expectations are the same. Now, answering an 8-mark question. First step. This I have observed recently while going through the mark schemes, that earlier when you define economic term which is relevant to the question, that was not forming a part of mark scheme. But now that is seen as the basic knowledge and understanding, and for which a candidate can be rewarded 1 to 2 marks depending on the quality of response and the relevance of the economic term identified. So first step, when you read the question, try to identify which economic terms are relevant to this. And most of the times, economic terms which are relevant are forming a part of the question. For example, discuss whether or not demand side policy measures can promote economic growth. Now, in this question, demand side policy is one economics term and another is economic growth. So you may begin your question response by defining demand side policy and economic growth. Because if you understand demand side policy and economic growth, probability is very high that you may be able to answer. You have understood the demand of the question. And that's how you are getting rewarded by 1 or 2 marks. Mostly, if you define both of them correctly, you may get 2 marks. Still, you have not answered anything, but you are reaching over there. So that reduces the burden of the number of arguments which you are going to make. With the little less arguments, you have managed to still score couple of marks. Now, what is left is 6 to 7 more marks you have to look at. So, first step should be identify the economics term which is relevant and define that. In the next slide, I am just giving some more practice to this to you to understand it and also understand when it may be not possible. You have to skip that defining economic term. Let's see the first question. Discuss whether or not low taxes on firms will be beneficial for an economy. Now, taxes can be indirect taxes, can be direct taxes. Indirect taxes reduces the cost of production, so may affect the supply. Direct taxes are having macroeconomic aspect. Direct taxes may also leave extra profit after tax with firms, which may lead also to increase in supply. So both the taxes have their role, direct and indirect tax both. So by explaining indirect tax and direct tax and how they work, you are showing some understanding. And in fact, when you know the difference between both of them, then again the probability of you to be able to answer this question correctly will be high. So this is basically an laying a uh, impression on the leaving an impression on the examiner that okay, yes, you know the pulse of the question, and examiner can look forward to get a very good response from your end. Well, begin is half done, as we say. Discuss whether or not an increase in export is beneficial to an economy. Okay, we can define exports over here. What is the meaning of exports? At the relevance of exports for the economy. If you see, there is a question: discuss whether or not increasing sales of a product will be beneficial to a firm. Now, sales, how what defining sales will be a little bit weird. So I have written as such, no economic term seems worth defining over here. However, if you think of that, okay, sales are associated with revenue, so increase in sale uh, may indicate increase in sales revenue. So little bit far-fetched because there are so many ifs and buts in that. So be open that if you are not finding any relevant economic term to be defined, you can skip it and move to the next step. Okay, so be flexible. And to be flexible, you need to be exposed to variety of situations. That's why this presentation, I am hopeful that may be of some help to you. Let's see the last question. Discuss whether or not a cut in interest rate will increase investment. Now, interest is the cost of borrowing and a reward for savings. So, interest can be defined. Investment. Investment. What is investment? Investment is an expenditure incurred by firms and the government. In fact, there can be more deeper meaning, but it's an expenditure incurred for enhancing production activities. It may be it may help in infrastructure development by the government, or maybe expanding the size of public sector organizations. Similarly, for businesses, investment is to improve the physical capital of the business by installing advanced technology or machinery, or maybe training the workers to enhance their productivity. So, investment is an increase in expenditure aimed at increasing uh, productivity, enhancing economic activity. So, investment can be defined, rate of interest can be defined over here. And now, how interest rate cut may lead to increase in investment or may not can be the further development. But initial step is like, let us identify relevant economics terms and define them. Then, if you follow the first step, it's great. If there is no scope, then your second step will be the first step. You will be initiating the response from directly from the second step. And now, again, we are going to the types of question, which we have divided into four categories for ease of understanding. The question may be about the policy measure taken by the government or a business, or a method implemented by a government or a private sector, or a decision taken with the aim to achieve certain goals. So, how to answer that question? Make 2 to 3 well explained arguments in favor of the effectiveness of this decision. Means this decision or a method or a measure is going to be effective because of these reasons. And then two to three arguments that why it may not be effective. In all, 4 to 5 such arguments are sufficient. In fact, 4 arguments are sufficient. And if they are added with one economic terms, that means you are giving to the examiner a scope of rewarding you with 10 marks, which is not possible. That means maximum 8 marks, 8 out of 8 can easily be scored. And if 5 arguments, that means you are better off. The chances of if there is any mistake committed by you, but because there are little extra arguments uh, made by you, will compensate for those mistakes, and still you can get 8 out of 8 because there is no negative marking. You are not going to lose mark for making any wrong argument if the number of arguments which are right are sufficient to meet the assessment requirement. So if you are getting 8 ticks by the examiner, you are going to get 8 marks, no matter how many cross you have been faced, you have been given. But at the same time, time management is a crucial thing. Do not just keep writing the response. As I told, you cannot get more than 8 out of the maximum 8 marks allotted to these questions. So balance it out. Little extra, not too much. As they say, excess of everything is bad. And so does in this case. Next I have given an example of the similar type of question, that suppose the question is, discuss whether or not a cut in the rate of interest will increase investment. So as we discussed earlier, define interest rate and then investment. And then we will make 2 to 3 arguments to explain how cut in interest rate will increase investment. And 2 to 3 arguments, well explained arguments, mind it, how the cut in interest rate will not increase investment. So this is what will meet the requirement of the examiner, and we can look forward to score the max. Then there is a second category of question which is based on evaluation or testing claims. Let's see the example. Suppose the question is, discuss whether or not people in high income countries always enjoy a high standard of living than those in the low income countries. Standard of living is a key term out here. So let's define standard of living. If we understand standard of living, there is a great possibility that we may answer it well. So define standard of living, and then 2 to 3 arguments that yes, high income countries, people in high income countries may certainly enjoy a high living standard, but there may be a possibility that people in high income countries may not enjoy higher living standards. There can be various reasons. They may be suffering from low ranking in happiness index. There may be high level of inequality in the income distribution. The pollution levels are high, which is harmful for health. Then there is also a possibility that stress level is high, which is again harmful to health. So there are various reasons because of which that you may be a person living in a high income country, but may be experiencing a relatively low standard of living compared to low income countries. So you have to answer from both the side. Yes, high income countries may have high standard. No, high income countries may not have high standard of living. People living in high income countries may not have high standard of living. Then we move to the next category of question, probability of future events. Let's switch to the next slide quickly and see through example. Discuss whether a rise in demand for country's export would cause it to experience a current account surplus. Now, export is one of the term. Then what is the relationship between export and current account surplus? So do we know what is current account? If we don't know current account, can we answer this question well? Examiner also knows that, isn't it? So if we define current account and we define it correctly, we have set the tone right. So define export, define current account, because when you define current account fully, actually you have made it clear to the examiner, you know that current account scope is wider. So maybe exports, rise in demand of export may cause a current account surplus, but there are other factors which may crowd it out, which may not lead to causing a current account surplus. So you have to go this way. So first define exports, current account, and a current account surplus. Maybe if you define these three correctly, you are certainly going to get minimum 2 marks. Then your job reduces of evaluation, then less burden. 2 to 3 arguments explaining how increase in exports may create current account surplus, and 2 to 3 arguments why you don't think so. And that's how the answer will be completing. If we move to the next category, pros and cons. Again, let's skip and move to the example. Discuss whether or not an increase in taxes is beneficial for an economy. So again, increase in taxes beneficial for an economy. We can define taxes. Again, taxes are indirect taxes and direct taxes. So let's define both. because indirect taxes are regressive in nature, direct taxes are progressive in nature. The nature is different, so the impact may be different. So by being mindful, because you are appearing in exam after the whole syllabus is you are exposed to the entire syllabus, isn't it? So when you are answering a question, look at the DP curriculum in totality. Do not look at one section, second, two section, three section, all the sections in totality. Any section can support you. Any knowledge of IGCSE economics curriculum, any economic theory and concept may be helpful to you in answering the question. So discuss whether or not an increase in taxes is beneficial for an economy. So define indirect tax, direct tax, and then give 2 to 3 arguments about benefits of increase in tax for the economy and 2 to 3 arguments of how increase in taxes may not be beneficial for the economy. Now, when you are answering 6-mark questions, the only difference is, first of all, the command term is discuss. That means the nature of the question will be somewhat similar to the 8-mark question. You can also classify the 6-mark question in similar categories. It's a data response question. So there is a data given. If you have read it thoroughly and you have comprehended it, then there is a possibility that you may get a significant help from the information given in data itself while building up your arguments. So well explained argument should be made covering both the sides, like we have seen in a D mark, 8 mark D part of section B, 8 marks question. Sorry. Uh, Same thing we have to do over here. Only thing is the number of well explained argument covering one side should be maximum 2. Like for 8 marks, we are saying 2 to 3. Here it should be maximum 2. And total number of well explained argument can be 3 to 4. Like we had in 8-mark question 4 to 5. Here it can be 3 to 4. Because 3 to 4, if suppose one sided 2 arguments and another side 1 argument, so and explain a well explained argument, each argument will qualify for 2 marks because you identify the argument and you develop it further. So 1 mark for identifying and 1 mark for developing it further. So each argument is giving you 2 marks. Therefore, 3 arguments should be rewarded 6 marks, and 6 is the maximum mark allotted here in section A to such type of questions testing assessment objective 3. So in that case, 4 arguments are making you better off. Is like an insurance cover. Even if there is any mistake, that mistake will be compensated by an extra argument made by you. Here also you can think of defining the relevant term if the need be, if you are falling short of an argument. Then define a term and leave it to the mark scheme. If the mark scheme entertains that, if it makes sense to the team of examiners, you are better off. Otherwise, you have learned something, isn't it? So this is it. I hope how to answer 6 and 8 mark question you have understood, and you are going to score 36 out of 36. 36 out of 36 allocated to these type of questions, which will secure your 28 marks out of 100, which is a big number. So don't miss a single mark, not while not compromising a learning. Learning is the prerequisite. Marks will follow, but we have to plan how to get even marks, because after we have learned how to meet the expectation of assessment criteria is equally important. Both complement each other, and that's how a good learning assessed, if assessed, followed by good scores. Okay, wish you all the best. Okay, wish you all the best.